Hello and welcome to the Shiny Bees podcast, a podcast for those who like their knitting, comedy and yarn in equally large measures. I'm your host, Jo Millman, and this is episode 162, The Boyfriend Sweater Curse.
I feel a need to laugh again with you, if that's alright. I need a drink, I need a friend, I need your help. I want to smile again.
Hello and welcome to episode 162 of the Shiny Bees Knitting Podcast. I am Jo, I'm your host, and I'm back with you today to chat all things The Boyfriend Sweater Curse. Today is Tuesday the 3rd of November 2020. How are you? I hope you've been well since last time I spoke to you. Things have deteriorated markedly since last time I spoke to you. We were in tier 3, now we're about to head face first, triple somersaulting into another Bojo lockdown. So yeah, not that much difference. Not like I go out that much anyway for me, but I wouldn't mind seeing people every now and again. Don't want to lick anyone, just like maybe stand a little bit near them. Not too near, obvs. So yeah. But I'm back again, as I say, and today I'm going to be talking about the sweater curse for a very particular reason. So, grab your brew, grab your knitting, and we will crack on with the show. The sweater curse, then, have you heard of it? I always assume that everyone's heard of anything, and you might not even have heard of this as a thing, but I was inspired to talk about the sweater curse today. I don't think I've really spoken about it too much before on the podcast because I'm not entirely convinced it exists, but also because I, on occasion, suffer from a bit of a criminally deficient attention span when it comes to knitting large garments, in particular the sort of large garment that might fit one's husband. So the sweater curse, if you're not familiar, or the boyfriend sweater curse as it's sometimes called, or the curse of the love sweater, is a term used by knitters to describe the belief that if a knitter gives a hand-knitted sweater to a significant other, it will signal the end of the relationship and lead to the recipient breaking up with the knitter. Sometimes that might mean that the relationship will even break up before the sweater is finished. And apparently, in a 2005 poll, 15% of active knitters said that they had experienced the sweater curse firsthand, and 41% considered it a possibility that should be taken seriously. Thank you for that, Wiki. So it's a superstition, effectively, or it might be real. We're not sure. Flat Earth might be real and all that, but apparently, the existence of the phenomenon is anecdotal and it may be related to confirmation bias. As in, you might remember if you'd spent bloody ages knitting a sweater for someone, spent a ton of money on yarn, spent a load of time making it, thought about it, sat there for hours, and then not only did they not like it and wear it and think you were brilliant, but they chinned you off as well, then of course you're going to remember that. It's going to be quite traumatic, I think. But there are, a number of proposed ways that this sweater curse may manifest itself. So some people think it might be because of unlucky timing, and knitting a sweater takes so long, a jumper takes so long that the relationship just dies in the meantime, runs its course before you finished it. I mean, how many whips have you got lying around that have been there for 8 years, Could easily, go through a couple of relationships by that point, maybe more. Some people say that the knitter subconsciously thinks, senses that the relationship might be coming to an end, and the sweater is a way of rescuing it. I mean, why would you do that when, people think it is real? If you think it's going west, I'd spend the money on yarn for my own jumper, thank you. But There we go. What it might do is cause the recipient to evaluate the relationship. It's quite a big commitment of time, money, and effort and love. And, they might think it's all getting a little bit too serious. Maybe they don't want to wear anything hand knitted, or they don't want to wear it because they think it looks bad. And they'd just rather get rid of the knitter than get rid of the jumper. It might be easier to get rid of the knitter than get rid of the jumper if you've spent ages knitting it. And it might be that the knitter just gets so into the knitting after knitting this jumper that they haven't got time for thinking about their love interest because they're too busy looking at yarn, looking at patterns, and spending all of their time knitting and doing other things. So there are many reasons why the boyfriend sweater curse or the sweater curse, or curse of the love sweater, may exist. And the reason I'm talking about it today is because in my knitting, my planned knitting, my next projects plan, I'm going to finally knit my husband a sweater, a jumper, as we call it in the north, a jumper. And the reason why I've not knitted him one before now is because he is massive. I've knitted him some socks. It took forever. It's got like size 11 feet. Not the biggest feet you can get, but still very big when you've got a short attention span and it's your fingers that are being worked to the bone. That's a lot of stocking stitch to get through. He is a very grateful recipient of knitwear and he wears it dutifully, and he wore holes in the socks basically. So he couldn't carry on wearing them anymore because they needed to be all sort of stitched up, because obviously he's got big stinky man feet and needs stronger socks basically than those ones. Very nice though. And he wears his hat. I've knitted him a few hats. He'll wear those. Knitted him a scarf. He wears that. It's dead good. And every now and again, he will ask when I'm going to knit a garment for him. Obviously, he sees me wearing my collection of Lush cardigans in every colour, on the children maybe wearing some of their stuff, and he's very good about it. He doesn't bang on about it because he knows that won't work. But he does say, I'd really like a jumper, like your knitting's really good. I would really love a jumper. So, prompted because I'm a bit like on a whim like this. He's been asking for ages. We've been married for 12 years this year, December, 12 years. Grueling years. So we've probably been together about 14, 15 years. God, forever. It's got to be time for a new model. Anyway, only joking, darling. He listens to this while he's away, so... And he's buggered off basically back to work in overseas. So he's not here now. So I've nothing else to do at night other than the piles of domestic duties and everything else. So I'm going to knit him this jumper. And it was prompted by he's quite funny. But every now and again he does surprise me by being even funnier. And on his recent trip back, we were having this discussion and we watched this video of the food of my people, basically. I'm from Wigan originally, and I don't live there now, but I'm absolutely, definitely 100% Wiganese, like grew up in WN1 Wiganese. So the food of my people is like important. And my husband is a dirty southerner. I know. I only married him to breed out some of the shortness, okay? Everybody up north is small. The reason why you're small up north is because if you were my ancestors and you worked in a mill, right, you get decapitated if you're too big. You get your head knocked straight off by a spinning jenny. Right, you're working down a coal mine, get a bad back if you're too tall. And, it's not like we had any nutrition or anything. Everything was beige food. Everyone was small, right? I'm small. My dad's like 5'4", 5'5". I'm 5'2". My brother's about 5'8". My mum's 4'11", right? We are small. And everyone always says, I imagine you being really tall in my head. You've got a tall voice. What? I'm not. I'm wee. I'm like 5'2". My husband is 6'3". So he is massive and he's got massive shoulders. He's like really tall and slim, but really big shoulders. That is a lot of knitting, isn't it? It's a lot of knitting. Anyway, we were talking about the food of my people. So I'm Wiganese, and there was this video, I think it was on Joe, our Lad Bible, and it was a Scouser. So someone from Liverpool had come to Wigan and gone to a chippy. I'm very familiar with the chippy, the Trawlerman, and had decided he was going to try some of the local cuisine. So the first thing this guy, and it's basically a carb fest, coma of beige carbness. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing, right? So the first thing he tried was a Wigan kebab. If you're not familiar with what a Wigan kebab is, it is a meat and potato pie. So meat and preta, as it's called. Meat and preta pie. And that is placed inside a barm cake, right? It's a barm cake. It's not a muffin. It's not a bap. It's not a cob. It's not any of those things, right? It's not a freaking bread roll, right? It's a barm cake. There's no cake in it, but it's a barm cake. Right? Don't argue with me. It's a barm cake. I'm having none of it, right? Because barm cake, bread roll, bap, cob, whatever, muffin, causes loads of problems up here. But it's a bread roll, right? And you cut it, put butter on it, marge, obviously, because it's the north, and then you put a pie inside it. That's it. And then you eat it inside the pie sandwich, basically. Wigan kebab. That's what it's called, Wigan kebab. So, bless him, he's a southerner, and he looks at me, because he's learned about pies, right? I taught him about pies very, very early on in our relationship, because he's got to get used to the pies. The pie coefficient, the number of pie shops per capita in Wigan is ridiculous, right? So he's got to get used to the fodder. And he was really into it. I took him to Greenalches, which is not spelt with a ch, it's spelt with a GH, but we call it Greenalches, even though it should be Greenhalls, if you're pronouncing it right, but we're not, because we're from the north, we're from Wigan, right? We don't pronounce anything right. Everyone's got a speech and language problem in Wigan, according to my husband. And, yeah, took him to the pie shop, and he was just enthralled. He's like, I can't believe you can get like your entire lunch and a cake for a £5. This is amazing. So he's very familiar, loves the pie shop. Greenalches is his favourite. But he just looked at me like, with utter disgust. He's like, your people do this? Like, you have a pie and then you put it inside a bam. He calls it a bam cake as well. A bam cake? I'm like, yes, dude. Look at the Scouser, he's loving it. So the Scouser then moves on to the next thing, which is a Babies Yed. And my husband's now familiar with Babies Yeds because I also introduced him to these, thinking he would really like them. But it turns out he's not a fan of suet pastry. Now, a Babies Yed is a steamed suet pastry pudding, and inside of the pudding there is steak or steak and kidney mix, and then the outside is suet. So it's like this kind of really doughy, heavy, damp pastry that it comes in. But it looks like a baby's head when it's on the tray. So we call it Babies Yed. That's how they pronounce it, Babies Yed. So he, again, finds this hilarious. He's like, Annie, are you getting a Babies Yed? And he pulls her face when he's doing the accent as well. It's very sweet. So the Scouser tries this as well. Amazing. Again, truly beautiful thing. Recommend it if you're in the north. And then the next thing that we're talking about was smack barn pay wet. Smack barn pay wet is a slice of potato put in batter, deep fried. Right, you take that out, you put it on a barm cake. Remember, guys, it's a barm cake. It's not a cob. It's not a bread roll. It's not a muffin. It's not a bap. It's none of those things, right? It's a barm cake. The smack goes on the barm cake, and then pay wet is the juice off mushy peas. Now, if you've done your mushy peas right, there ain't no juice, right? They're not runny. It's just like stodge if you've done them right. So essentially what you get is just a thinner amount of peas, like a bit less peas, mushy peas. But they're for free, right? So you don't pay for pay wet. You don't pay for pay wet. Don't pay for pay wet. They come for free. So this is like quite a cheap treat. Like if you're a kid, you get smack barn pay wet because it's cheaper than buying a tray of chips or fish and chips. So he's just mind blown. His little southern brain is dribbling out of his ears like he can't cope. I mean, this is the man, right? I only found this out after we got married. He puts balsamic bloody vinegar on his chips. The dirty sod. Balsamic on chips? Oh, I feel like an extra from Peter Kay. Savage. Oh, my word. Anyway, so we're talking in the car about the food of my people. And I turns around to and I call him Millie. His name's not Millie, but I call him Millie. That's what I know him as from when we first met. His name's not Millie. And I was like, so Millie, what's a Wigan kebab? Like testing his knowledge if he remembers. And he turns around and looks at me and in full Northern just goes, it's belting. And that was it, like I literally fell in love with him all over again. I could look past the balsamic vinegar absolute debauchery. What's a balsamic? Who's even got balsamic in? Let alone putting it on your chips. Good grief. But I look past that. Look past the fact he was born south of the Watford Gap, right? And I fell in love with the guy all over again. And so now he's getting his jumper. So that is how, via a Wigan kebab, Babby Shed Smack Bam Pay Wet, lots of beige carbs, he's ended up scoring himself my committed effort to making him a jumper. But of course, it's going to be a jumper that I want to make. So we will get onto that now, basically, and I'll do the shout outs and everything else after. So in knitting, what I'm going to do, because obviously I could ask him to pick which one he wants, but that would be too much fun for him. And I always have to remind him that, I like the little kind of things that I do just to wind him up. This is another one of them. So he wants a jumper, and I've picked a jumper for him. So I've not let him pick one. I've picked one myself, and he gets hot, so there's no point making him anything Aran or above, but it's absolutely and 100% called for because he wears, like when he buys clothes in the shop, he buys XL because he's just massive. Otherwise, it looks like he's got some kind of, crop top thing going on. And his shoulders are really big, so he has to buy like bigger sizes. So he wears an XL, which is like a lot of knitting. So I decided, if you've got these lovely shoulders, you may as well show them off. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to knit a colourwork. Massive colourwork jumper in DK. So I'm not going completely crazy. I'm doing it in DK. Still a lot of bloody knitting. And I'm going to knit him for Fox's sake. So passive aggressive, but it just sums up everything about putting balsamic vinegar on chips, quite frankly. So for Fox's sake, which is a pattern that I've featured in one of the pattern picks before, it's Maxime Cyr CYR is how you say his surname, and it's awesome. So it's basically got these little foxes around the yoke. It's a colourwork yoke, and it's got these foxes with these little glasses on, little square glasses, all around the yoke. So I'm like, well, if you're going to have a jumper, you're going to have a silly one, aren't you? And it's really cool. It's quite quirky. And he's massive. So, you take him to school and he's like a foot taller than everyone else in the playground. It's ridiculous. The parents, not just the kids. And I thought this would be good. If you're going to like be noticed, you may as well be noticed in your knitwear, right? So I've been looking at what to knit it in because it's a DK pattern, and obviously it's going to take a load of yarn. It's like 1,200 yards of yarn or something, which potentially could be, with hand-dyed, easily like 150 quid jumper by the time you've got all the different colours and everything else. And I'm probably going to have to extend the body, I'd imagine, a little bit for him because he's super tall. So I have been looking at some West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. The yarn the pattern calls for is Madeline Tosh. And I had considered doing it in Nurturing Fibres Super Twist DK and ordering some of that in from South Africa, but I'm not sure if it will get here and how long it will take. And the post in South Africa is pretty rubbish at the best of times. And obviously I need like larger amounts. I need it sort of dyed to order for the bigger amounts. So I decided to kind of slide that till next time I go to South Africa, and then I can order some more yarn. Right, let's think ahead, think positive. And instead, I would look at some more local and a little bit more cost-effective yarn. So I've been looking at the West Yorkshire Spinners. I really like West Yorkshire Spinners. some of the Airedale is a little bit scratchy, I find personally, but it looks brand new. It never wears, so it's kind of worth the trade-off, I feel. But I've been looking at West Yorkshire Spinners Croft DK, which is a 100% Shetland yarn. That's pretty affordable comparatively. It's £9.50 per 100 grams. Obviously, I went for something like acrylic. It would be a lot cheaper than that, but I don't want to knit him an acrylic jumper because he would definitely smell like a sweaty dog, I think, from wearing the acrylic. So I want a proper wool jumper if I'm going to put that much time into it. So Norby is the shade I've been looking at. It's quite a dark petrol blue. He really suits that colour because he's a silver fox these days. And I can get the 3 colours, but the fox's face is orange, and they don't do an orange. They do a yellow, but not an orange. I don't think I can put the yellow in the jumper. I think he'll look a bit ill. And I'm a little bit unsure as to what, because it's colour work and because I'm matching something with 100% Shetland yarn, I'm a little bit like, I'm not really sure what would be a good thing to sub in for this without trying a load of them, which is obviously going to mean having to get balls of yarn and samples and test it. So I was a bit like, okay. I can either make the fox less orange, that'll be far less fun, or I could try a different one. So I've also been looking at the Illustrious West Yorkshire Spinners Illustrious, which is 70% Falkland, 30% alpaca. He's not allergic to alpaca, so I think this will be good. And I really like Falkland wool. That's £9.95 per 100 grams, so in the same ballpark. And that could be quite a nice option. And they do have some slightly more toned down versions. They've got a really great orange, and that's in the Aran. And again, the orange in the DK is a little bit yellowy, but I feel like it's far easier to substitute something for a 70-30 wool alpaca because there are lots of different yarns that spring to mind immediately that I could swap in for that. So I'm a bit less worried about doing that. There's no steeking or anything on it, so it's not going to be a big deal. So that's kind of a front runner at the moment as well. I also considered doing it in the Wensleydale yarn. So the Gems yarn are, again, quite bright colours, because if you're going to make him wear a jumper, I may as well make him wear something bright. But they're almost all out of stock. There's a lot of people that don't have any in stock, and it's off the West Yorkshire Spinners website as well. So I don't know if there's been obviously some COVID-related spinning delay or what. I have no idea, or whether they're just discontinuing the yarn. I'm not sure. But yeah, so that not the Wensleydale, because I feel like it would be cool for him to have like a unusual sweater design with a more unusual breed of yarn. And he's quite big and clumsy, and he needs something that will wear better. I'm definitely not doing it in any kind of buttery merino nonsense, because he's going to end up taking all the bobbles off his jumper for him. So, yeah. But I'm a bit concerned, like, what if I finish this bloody massive jumper and then he buggers off? What am I going to do? Who's going to lift things out of the top cupboard for me? That's all I've got him for, is so that I don't need a step stool in the kitchen, innit? So he's going to be furious when he's listening to this, bless him. So yeah, that's what I'm working on with that, for fuck's sake. It's $10 Canadian. It's available on Ravelry if you want to go and check it out. It's really cool. The other thing that I am about to cast on, because I like to go from one extreme to the other, is a Curious Handmade shawl. My dear pal Helen, it's a really old one of hers actually. It is Glitz at the Ritz. It's a free pattern and it's a beaded shawl, but it's a one skein pattern originally designed for the Juno Alice, so the 70% alpaca I think it was, and then silk and cashmere I think was in it, so it was super luxe. And I don't have any of that, but I do have some Eden Cottage Yarns Beadle 4-ply, which is 50% baby yak and 50% silk. I've had it for ages. It was a gift from Victoria. And I've got these Aurora Borealis beads that I found in stash, and I thought I could put these together and that would be super, super festive, you know, like fun and nice and twinkly. And I love beaded knitting, so this could be a great option. So I'm going to also be looking at casting that on. I am going to save that, I think, for knit along. I'm going to host a knit along, I think. Yeah, I think I've written it on my pad, so I'm going to do it. And just, yeah. Because it's dark and everyone's already painted and gardened and done everything else they can do at home. Not that I'm going to necessarily be at home because I'll be able to go to my office, but yeah, I just want something delicious and joyful. So I'm calling it the Delicious Little Joys, Carl. I haven't checked the hashtag yet, but I'm assuming there's not going to be anyone using that particular combination of words. With the idea being that just knit whatever you want, in whatever you want, but make it something delicious and exciting. Preferably add some biscuits into the mix. One of my current favourites is the dark treacle Sainsbury's. It's not Be Good to Yourself. It's the naughty. Taste the difference. Taste the calories. They do one. It's a dark treacle oat biscuit. The Lush. They're great with the Rooibos. I would recommend that as a delicious little joy. I like a square of 90% chocolate as a delicious little joy. I like the odd club. If you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuits, join up. Mint clubs only, not orange. And I just thought it would be nice to try and go and look for delicious little joys every day. Like, what's your delicious little joy? What can you spoil yourself with today? It doesn't have to be food, although crack on if it is. But it's about kind of like treating yourself and finding ways to make yourself feel good, whether it's through a walk or it's a couple of, rows of knitting, or I've started to get up early. Such a blowhard, I know. Get up early before the kids get up, and I make a cup of tea and I read my book. And I get up early just to do that because I feel like the first and most important thing in my day has been my brew and me doing something for me. That's a delicious little joy. So yeah, that's my plan, delicious little joys. Knit what you want, with what you want, whatever pattern you want, but the thing that ties it all together is finding a delicious little joy. That isn't putting balsamic vinegar on your chips. It's not. Anything else but balsamic chips is fine. And I'm going to be hosting that over in the Mighty Networks group. You can come join us. It's free. It's shinybees.com/community. And then I will let you in and we'll put all the chat in there. Obviously, if you want to share your works in progress or anything on social, you can do with that hashtag Delicious Little Joys. Your treats, share your treats. I'm really interested in the treats because then I can get some ideas to give myself more treats. And hopefully we can spread a little bit of good cheer and fun with that. The other thing I'm going to facilitate, and I will again put details in the Mighty Networks, the Shiny Bees Podcast Club. You can find me in the club. In a weird mood tonight, aren't I? Is we're going to do a little swap, because we're, obviously locked up again for another month. I thought it might be fun to do a postcard swap. Nobody's travelling anywhere, are they, anytime soon? And maybe some kind of like postcard swap, maybe an ornament swap or a bauble swap, because obviously if you want to do a Christmas ornament, you can, but if not, if you don't celebrate Christmas or you don't want to do a swap for that, you can, some other little hanging trinket will be perfectly adequate. So I'll put some more details in probably the next episode, and I'll put it over in the podcast group when that's all organised, because the kids only went back to school today, so I'm still a little bit like, to the point where I had everything packed and organised and then forgot the water bottles, and they've come out of school. One of them's brought no water bottle home and the other one's not brought the lunchbox home. It's like day one. Yeah. So I'll put the gen for the little swapsies also over in the community. So do come and join us over there and join in with the chat. It's good. It's good. I like it. It's really fun. So yeah, that is about half the stuff I had planned to talk about, but clearly I had opinions with a capital O about boyfriend sweaters and balsamic vinegar on chips and barm cakes. So I cannot wait for the backlash on social about this whole barm cake thing. Might design a knitting pattern for a barm cake, the knitted barm cake. It would have to be crochet though. The crocheters are way better at like anything remotely comedy. So yeah, I'm going to basically roll over half my content to next week, but that means I've got a head start, doesn't it? The one thing I'm not going to do is forget to do a shout out, and I have a couple of shout outs this week before we wrap up. The first one is to Kezia Green. Hello, Kezia. Been having a good little chat with her this week. New listener, recently come back to knitting, listened to The Guilty Feminist, and then somehow got on to me. Lovely, lovely to have you with us. Hope I'm not too much of a disappointment to you, Kezia. And the other one is to Nicola Nolan, the official back catalogue queen of the Shiny Bees podcast, who I love dearly. She's an absolute superstar. Nicola has now completed the back catalogue, which means somebody else is going to have to tell me when I've done some content before, because I literally can't remember it. I should probably listen to my own back catalogue. But Nicola and Kezia, lots of love to both of you. Absolute legends. That's all I've got for you this week. I hope you've enjoyed the show and all of the carbs. I bet we're all at least 3 stone heavier from listening to that Wigginese food. I'll put links to all of this, including the random video, if you want to go and watch this really confused Scouser eat some beige food, in the show notes. You'll be able to find the show notes at shinybees.com/162. And that's that. Happy crafting, have a great week, and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers! You've been listening to the Shiny Bees podcast. All of that northern fodder can be found for sale at the Trawlerman in Wigan. Great chip shop. If you'd like to leave a review for the podcast, you can do so on any of your favourite podcatchers of choice, on iTunes or on Podchaser.
If that's alright.